This is Grant Troop, Mid-Atlantic correspondent with Ag Reports Network. We're in a crop field on the Gideon Stoltzfus farm at Gap, Pennsylvania, in Lancaster County. And I'm here today with Joel Myers, the technical agronomy advisor for the Pennsylvania No-Till Alliance. Paul's been a no-tiller for years, got a lot of experience, and he's going to share some things with us from a soil pit, showing us some things of the benefits of long-term no-till and some of the things you'd look at and look for if you were in a no-till soil pit. Joel, let's hear what you have to say.
Thank you, Grant. It's my privilege to be here and look at these things with you today. We like to get out in the dirt, in the soil that is, and look at what no-till can do for the soil and how long-term no-till works in the soils. I'd like to start out just talk a little bit about different kinds of roots. Here we have an alfalfa stalk. It obviously had a real heavy taproot and it could cut off, but it would go very deep into the soil. There's some fine roots here, but by and large we have one main root going deep. We move into the grass family, and this would apply to like the grass in this hay field, probably orchard grass, or some of the cover crops we use that are grasses like Annual ryegrass, the cereal grains, rye, wheat, triticale, and so forth. And here we see an entirely different rooting system. We see fibrous roots, a lot of roots near the surface, and actually here, Grant, we can see a couple earthworms. Mm-hmm. And that's where you'll find them. So that's an important part of knowing these different root characteristics and trying to get both of them into our cropping system as a primary crop or a cover crop. While we're kind of looking at this here, we are in a field here that has some very good cover crops and residue left from those cover crops. This was a rye cover crop that was planted into very high. This was all on the surface above, on top of the soil. And then just under that, we have another layer, and I don't know if you can see the color of that or not, but it's very, very dark. And this is residue in the process of breaking down. You see some of the particles there. Some of the residue is partly decayed. And in another year or two, this is going to be organic matter. And this is going to be what makes our no-till system work well. This is very moist yet because it's mulched with this residue on the surface. And it's just a good situation. As we break this apart, we can kind of see it's crumbly, good soil structure. You saw those earthworms in that clod a minute ago. We got earthworms in here, a few night crawlers, but just a real good situation with the roots and then the surface cover. Let's take a minute and just kind of dig here a little bit in this soil profile and see what we can see here. One other thing I mentioned, talk about roots. We all know what dandelions are. And oftentimes we can tell if the soil is compacted by looking at a dandelion root to see if it has a good straight tap root. Here it's got branching roots. That looks fairly healthy. I've already seen a root from a dandelion. Here's a better tap root, but it did an L like this. And that told us that underneath that was a tight layer. The root couldn't get through that, so it went path of least resistance. So maybe dandelions have something that are worthwhile to us. Now here, as we look down through this profile, we just see a mass of roots here. Some are dead roots from prior crops. When we don't do tillage over a long period of time, we tend to develop a situation where these roots are here in the profile, and then as the crop's killed, these die, and this makes more pores in the soil for earthworms and night crawlers, and for other roots to follow as well. So if you look carefully, I don't know if it shows up on your camera, but there's a night crawler hole right there, a fairly large burrow. Generally they're more vertical, and I don't see a lot here, but we see a lot of earth. One thing that I like to show farmers and others in talking about no-till is what happens in the soil profile in a natural situation where we never do tillage. These soils were put in these jars last winter, and we had a layer of topsoil from here up. We had a little thin layer of sand, very uniform around here. And then we had yellow subsoil. And now, after a few months of mixing by night crawlers and earthworms, we see subsoil has been brought up in the top. We see topsoil that's moved down. And we really don't even have a distinct, there you can really see the channels where the topsoil came down. And the distinct layer of sand is now gone. So that's a pretty good shot there. This one I put some rye in just to introduce some roots into this, which is natural, what we want. Again, you can see channels, and you can look how the roots are following those earthworm channels. And again, this is very disturbed, and pockets and pores in there. No-till soil, long-term, without any tillage, definitely is firmer. And that makes it easier to drive on when it's wet. It gives it a lot of good benefits, but it's also very porous because of the activity of the earthworms and night crawlers. And actually in pounds per acre, we have more smaller microbes and other critters in the soil. We have more pounds per acre of the small ones than we do the earthworms and night crawlers, just to give you an idea of the soil life that we're trying to build with no-till. And really this is, we talk about the dreaded no-till transition, and if we are getting our microbes to do these things, the transition is really not a problem. The transition really evolves around soil biology. So I think that pretty well summarizes what we see here.
Okay, thank you, Joel, for that tremendous insight and some of the things that happen in our no-till. We just once again would scan the landscape, or here in a cornfield in the edge of Lancaster County before you get into Chester County, Pennsylvania, at Gap, PA, and looking at some plot corn that was put out with a number of different cover crop treatments, and the corn looks pretty darn good. For the Ag Reports Network, this is correspondent H. Grant.